Hey, this is Scott Welch, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music with the amazing master of the golden microphone of the podcast world, the one and only Bob Bender.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
Here in the studio today, Nashville, Tennessee, two very lovely people that we've had. I know we've had Rick in the studio in the past. Melissa, yeah, we've had you too. So Rick and Melissa Corcavallo are in the studio today from Dead Horse Branding, and we're going to talk about something new and exciting they're working on and get a little bit of education, hopefully, today. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Bob.
Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for coming back. You spent some time during COVID being trapped, I guess, over in Australia.
Yep.
Trapp's a good word.
2 years, 3 months, and we're trying to get our immigration green card during the process, and it just dragged on and on to the point where we're like, screw it, let's just change our visa, spend another $1 million and come over here, only to land and 2 weeks later go, congratulations, you can pick up your green card in Sydney, Australia.
I was furious. I don't think I've ever been more furious in my life.
So did you have to go back to Australia?
Well, our attorney was saying, yeah, you got to go back and get it. And I was like, we cannot. Like, we cannot. It's not doable. So Rick and I just kind of thought, well, why don't we send him an email and see what happens? And you did. And they were like, yeah, no worries. Just hit us back 2 months before you're actually coming into Australia and we'll reorganize, we'll reschedule it. And we were like, oh my gosh, because that stuff, like, you usually can't move that stuff, right? It's like moving a mountain.
Years
oh my
trying to get this green card, but we're finally there. And,
finally there. We're gonna have a green party.
Yay!
We are. We're having a green party, but I can't have it until it's in my hand.
Right.
So we're slated to grab it in January when we're back.
Yeah, not that sort of green. It's not legal here.
I don't care what green, as long as it's green.
Oh, I just hope I get an invitation.
You have an invitation for sure.
So, Dead Horse Branding, you guys have been in existence how many years now?
That's a great question. 2014 is when we officially...
That's when we officially started, but we'd been doing branding and helping other clients for probably 4 years before that.
Yeah, I mean, you even longer.
I've been in marketing and design and creative all my life.
Right.
The music bug just got me, and that was my interim or hiatus from the design world, but I've done it all my life.
Were you a musician at one point in your life?
Yeah, I came over here when I was probably 2006. You know, I'd go tour up and down the coast of Australia, then LA to New York, and then out to Europe and back, and it was like... Yeah, I'd get home and had a great experience, but not much money was paid. Get home and you're like, I didn't make any money.
Yeah.
But I got burnt out, and I met Mel on the way, and, you know, I realised how the business worked, and I'm a much better visual artist than I'm a sonic artist, but when I write songs, I see pictures, and I put those pictures into words. So, but I'm a better visual guy, I believe.
So Dead Horse Branding is created, and you guys got off to a good running start from what I remember.
Yeah, it was, well, as Rick said, I met him when he was doing his music, and I actually met him on set of his music video in Australia, which is a crazy story because a friend of mine, because I was coming back and forth to Nashville for business and music business reasons, and Rick was coming back and forth for creative reasons.
Right.
There was a man in the middle named Dan He was my friend, but he ran into Rick when Rick was playing at the Blue Bar, old Blue Bar.
Blue Bar back then.
In Midtown. And Dan was like, oh, you might know my friend Mel, and, from Australia. And Rick's like, dude, Australia's a pretty big place.
Yeah.
Anyway, turns out he looked me up, and I was actually doing some work with his ex-girlfriend, and we lived 10 minutes from each other in the same hometown. So couple of conversations, didn't really go anywhere. And then it happened to him again a couple years later. He ran into Dan again in Nashville. And Dan was like, well, did you ever hook up with Mel? And he's like, no, I didn't, but I've got a music video going on. So then Dan reached out to me and was like, look, you never met with Rick. I think you should. He's got a video going on. And so I was like, all right. And Rick said, do you want to be in the video? I said, sure, I'll be in the video. And we've been together ever since.
Yeah, so she whipped me into gear, and I had the design side and the creative side. She had the business side and some creative, and I got a little bit of business too, I guess. But it just worked, and we got off to a run and start with our own brand that we started with fashion, and then we worked with Duck Dynasty, and it just grew from there.
Yeah, and definitely like Average Joe's, Shannon over there at Average Joe's was amazing and one of our very first clients, and we helped build the Slinger brand for Colt Ford and did licensing deal with mountain boards because they're in that kind of mud bogging community. So we got all these like really cool, the Slinger designs for the apparel and merchandise. We got on these like mountain boards, and they're like kind of skateboards but like for mountain and off-road. So we started doing all that. And then, as Rick said, I mean, he's a multifaceted creator, from directing visual music videos to songwriting to graphic design to airbrush painting, canvas work, building construction. Like our whole house is the house of Rick. It's tables, it's lights, it's, he's just that ultra creative individual. So when Dead Horse started, he'd been designing a whole bunch and creating a whole bunch in various different mediums for various different companies. And I was just selling things. I was selling and little companies I was creating and marketing and ideas and networking. And so when our kind of two halves came together, and I had a music business background, I was working with the Idols in Australia for a company that would kind of buy them and sign them out of their shelved deals from the major labels. And we would keep them in the system working. Our two halves came together. And so Dead Horse really doesn't exist without Rick, and it doesn't exist without me. It's our two halves that kind of create it. And it really is the way that we work together and the way that we understand each other. And that way a brand can be very fluid. And then our teams are extensions of us in our way. So between us, we do 3.5 formulas each is pretty much how we explain it, and we cross over ever so.
Kind of the yin and the yang.
Mm-hmm.
I just do what she tells me to do.
Well, and vice versa when it's on design. Yeah, we do. We really do work together.
When you take on a new project, I'm sure there's a get-to-know period where you need to kind of suss them out and figure out, first of all, is it a right fit for everybody? And then what you can do for them. How does that come about, that exploratory time?
That's my favorite part. I love knowing about people and what makes them tick, and then, finding out, because let's say we're consulting with a musician. It's like, hey, what would you be doing if you weren't a musician right now? And some people say, well, I'd be a musician. So, okay, well, that's good. That means they're hungry and they're meant to be. But some say, well, I ride horses and I shoot, or I ride motocross, whatever it is. And then we try and bring that brand out of them, so they're not just, I'm the next Taylor Swift. It's like, well, that place is taken.
Yeah.
So let's try and find a gap in the system that you can slide into and make it your own.
It's really finding the originality. You said that, well, I want to be the next Taylor Swift. And there's only one Taylor Swift, just like there's only one Usher or Justin Timberlake or, Tim McGraw. How do you help them find what their originality is? Because that sometimes can be a tough nut to crack, because maybe they don't want to admit it.
That's true. And I think yesterday would be a good example of a great emerging artist that we had the pleasure of doing a consult with. And she needed help with her brand. She needed help with her image. She needed help to understand what a brand is and where she fits and who she is. And she's kind of gotten a little bit lost along the way, like we all do. So adapting and using a lot of Rick's techniques, it really is about, like, I wasn't asking her anything about, like, I wasn't asking her about her career. I was asking her about her. I asked where she grew up. Where did she first hear of music? How old was she? I took her back to when she was 5. And I said, so what do you first remember hearing? And she was telling me it was kind of this Polish music, pop music. Families from Poland. I'm like, okay. And then she's like, but I had older siblings and one was really into rock and one was really into country. So she's like, I found myself in this real blended, poppy, soft and heavy, like Cinderella, like real rock kind of world. And as I started asking her, well, where do you work? What do you do? Where do you spend your time? What makes you tick? She works with children with disabilities, and she works in that sector, which is an incredible sector to work in and a very hard sector to work in, right, emotionally. And so I'm just getting to know her and her family. And anyway, as we're going through this for an hour of just, what are your favorite colors? What's this? What draws to you? You know, what textures do you like? In a nutshell, it turned out her brand essentially is she finds the soft and the tenderness in everything that's got jagged edges.
Wow.
Right? So she loves plush velvet textures, but she's gonna need to mix it with hard metals and leather and just tough and rough. And so we started getting into it, like, okay, so what's your message to the world? What's your message to people? And it's like, well, there's this beauty of the world. There's this, you know, some people were born with a beautiful gold spoon in their mouth. Other people were born in no bed. They're on the floor. There's these two worlds that they don't collide, but they create a triangle, and her music is the pathway down the middle, right? Where two worlds, as different as they are, and two different mediums as they are, we can all bet that someone who has grown up with so much privilege and had such a different life and is driving around in their daddy's Ferrari versus somebody who grew up on the streets and is still struggling just to feed themselves, those worlds are so different. But at the end of the day, both of those people and both of those cultures would all come together to sing Yesterday by the Beatles. That's the common thread, the music. How do you be that common thread, and how do you bring these two types together? And then we have a social media plan, and it starts to roll out. But Rick is the one that really starts to bring out, you know, the colors and the tones, and she's really into the golds and the royal blues, but then she's all about the amber and the earth. And then we were like, okay, so what kind of photo shoot would we do? And we ended up creating, okay, it's a cathedral and it's stained glass and it's all about higher power and you play piano, but it's wet and it's ruined, right? We've got to bring all the jaggedness in. So we go through all those 7 formulas of branding, and it really resonated with her. And she even emailed this morning saying, I'm so excited. You've kicked a fire back in me. I've been lost for so long. And that's the stuff that makes us tick. And that's what Rick wasn't a part of that consult yesterday, but I pull him in now to really start to visualize it and bring it together.
You have to cut deep. And then if you don't get, like, let's say you get 50% of that depth, then you're onto something, because some people just fluff. Even the ones on record labels these days, they don't really put too much effort in. They take them from TikTok. You got 5 million views, it's great, boom. And then it fizzles out. And they wonder why it fizzles out. And, you know, there needs to be some true meaning. At the end of the day, you don't want to be, country music's hot right now, I'm going to be a country star. It's like, no, what do you like? What is your passion? What drives you to get up in the morning? What's that thing? Let's go on that path, and that's your true destiny.
It's so difficult sometimes. I was actually on a consult yesterday with a gentleman out of Belgium who is a beatboxer. And to be honest, I know very little about beatboxing other than it's a vocal thing. It's, you know, you make these really cool sounds. But it was his passion. It's what he loved to do, but he wasn't making any money at it. And so it was the same thing. I had to ask him, well, what else would you like to do? And we finally got it out that, well, I'd like to be a tour manager, maybe tour manager for other beatboxers. I said, well, that's great, but just be a tour manager if that's what you want to be, and start that education process. And that really is what it comes down to, is educating these people of who they truly are.
And we've all needed it.
Yeah, and then like what you say, you know a bit about touring management. You look at the mathematics. It's like how many beatboxers are there in the world that actually tour?
Yeah.
And what does that look like? It's a microphone, right? That's all it is. So, you know, realistically, you're not going to be making a lot of money. But let's say there's 10 big guys in the world and they're making $1 million each. Then there's, you know, just there's basic mathematics, but there's also the creative that surrounds it that needs to be moving all in unison. So that's where Mel and I cross over a lot.
And the TikTok analogy is a great one, or any social media artist or talent that's blown up. But at the end of the day, that's a marketing driver. So it's just it's a marketing bit. It's not a brand. The record label or the individual still need to turn it into a brand that's going to have longevity. And one thing that I find interesting, and I see this coming out more and more and more now, is, you know, we managed a TikTok influencer that had over 5 million fans and viewers. Engagement was awesome, was really high. Numbers looked amazing. But when we actually put a campaign together and teamed up with a brand and actually put on an event, couldn't sell a ticket, not one ticket.
It didn't translate.
It didn't translate. So what does that tell you? It tells you that all those fans there are to be entertained behind their phones only. They don't want to go out. They don't want to learn. They didn't even really want to meet this person. It wasn't, that's as far as it went for them. I'm not saying that pertains to everyone, but there's a lot of that. Just because you can have so much traction on a site or a platform doesn't necessarily mean that's always going to translate into ticket sales. And I think that's starting to come out.
The record labels used to have artist development, and I was a manager of artist development at a label. And when that went away, it was now the labels looking at the influencers, looking at TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And, oh, well, look at these numbers. These are great. But you just said it. That doesn't necessarily translate into butts in a seat in a venue. And I think we more and more these days, and I know with my kids and my grandkids, that it's the phone is really their vessel of choice when it comes to entertainment. Are we going to be able to break out of that, or is that just something we have to now put in another box and say we have to use this as another tool in addition to a live performance?
I think it's in addition to, like, it's an incredible marketing piece. It's incredible to be able to get to your fans right there in the palm of their hands. I've always thought that and said that. But one thing's for sure, human beings haven't changed. Our brains haven't changed, and how you need to promote to us and how you need to market to us hasn't changed. Yes, we are in a world of a lot of content, and therefore we're flicking through it a lot quicker, right? So there is this, we've all heard it, the teenagers, the demographic, the young ones, or all of us, our attention span is short. And look, I'm not going to say our attention span isn't short, but what I do think comes with when you're throwing a lot of content at people is it has to be short because you're trying to get it through it all. It's a difference of getting 5 emails a day or 100. It's like I can get 5 and I can really read them properly and I can craft a response and I can get to it and I can map it out and I can have it fill my head, or I can quickly get through 100 and I have probably forgotten what 60% were about.
Right.
So there is a bit of a battle there of, okay, yes, we have a short attention span to a point, but if you go back to the marketing statistics, it still takes roughly 7 to 9 times for a human being to look at an image or a video or a logo or anything and remember it. So whether that's in a flash of 30 seconds on Instagram or TikTok, that 7 to 9 time frame still exists. So I feel like with social media, when it came along, pre-promotion really went out the window. Because a lot of people are like, well, I've got all these fans, so I can just drop things, drop. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. If you still want to get into the psychology of sales and promotion to people, we still need time. Time hasn't changed. So it's trying to balance all that.
I also think the way the world's going right now, we're one step away from doom and gloom, but it's especially during COVID, you're talking about people going to get out there more, and I think they're going to have to because we miss that connectivity.
Yeah, we do.
We're better together, And I find myself I've shrunken my circles. I don't want to go out as much, and I'm always busy doing stuff around our house or our property and whatever. But we need that connectivity to grow more and be alive. So hopefully, I don't know the answer, but hopefully the answer is yes, because I think it will. The pendulum swings both ways, right? So we got a lot of social media artists and some live artists that, the real deal. That's how you did it. That's how you did it 20 years ago. You drive 6 hours in a crappy van, you'd play a gig to 2 people, you get beat up, you don't get paid, then you drive back home. That's good character building, right?
Yes, it
These
is.
days, it's like, no
a
one's
lawsuit.
watching me, I'm just going to switch off my Instagram feed or my live feed. It's like, who cares? You don't develop like that.
Right.
It stunts your growth as an artist, and you're not teaching. We had an artist that was on stage and a backing track stopped and she walked off stage. I was like, hang on a second. You need to be put in that positions of, I played at a stadium, I played in front of 5 people, I played at a house party, I played at a campfire, all those different scenarios to be able to guide you in that one time where the power goes out. What do I do? And then you just hit it, you nail it. But you can't do that on social media. So hopefully, in answering your question, hopefully things will turn around and there'll be more live music. But with laws and, in Australia, they've done a lot of pub laws where the level of music has to stop at 9 o'clock because of the sound restrictions, noise pollution.
Doesn't allow.
It's really hurt the Australian music industry because that's how they grew all these great bands like AC/DC and Midnight Oil and people like that grew in that climate where they could just grow and just do stuff. It's a culture.
Ripped the culture away, when you start doing that. But the way that we brand build and when we are working with artists, getting out in front of your people and finding those demographics, it's always number one. Again, social media is that marketing tool. Don't not be on it. But yeah, it's not, how many fans can I get right now? I had an awesome chat to one of the wonderful females at Symphonic, and we were having a great old chat. And I was having the debate about how the algorithm for distribution doesn't coincide with the press release timelines and the press release algorithm, if you will. You can't go to media every 30 to 45 days trying to request an interview. It's like, we just spoke to you. Like, we need a break. But with the algorithm of distribution, you're looking at that 6 to 8 week timeline. And it's a different force, right? And I was like, I'm so frustrated. And she's like, well, this is where I say to artists and managers, are you building an algorithm or are you building a brand? And I was like, I love you. and that's exactly right. Are you building a social media fan base or are you building an actual fully rounded brand and using social media as a tool to sell?
We're going to take a break, get a word in for a couple of our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to have some more conversation with Rick and Melissa.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Since 1963, Korg has been creating new experiences in music and performance. That is what drove the creation of some of Korg's most legendary products, such as the Poly 6, the M1, the Electribe, the Triton, the Minilog, the Kronos, Wave State, Op6, and most recently the Nautilus, which is what we have here in our studio. Korg is dedicated to creating new, innovative, and uncompromising instruments which maintain the highest quality to inspire music makers, past, present, and future. Visit Korg.com or your favorite Korg dealer to get your hands on one of their products and start creating new music always. Korg, the official sponsor of the business side of music.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena. And believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics. All written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message. Thanks.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music.
Back in the studio with Rick and Melissa Coricaballo from Dead Horse Branding. One of the reasons I wanted to get you two back into the studio, because we've done a couple of other episodes. You mentioned we did one with Elliot Sloan from Blessed Union. We did an interview with Michael Blanton. But this time we're talking about Dead Horse Branding, and you two actually have, I don't know if I want to say a new venture. I'll let you describe it accordingly. But it's called Dead Horse 7. Did I get that right?
DH7.
Yeah.
DH7, okay.
Dead Horse 7, abbreviated DH7 branding module.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. It was built out of complete frustration, which I like. I like that it was built out of frustration. So it was 2020. Rick and I was stuck and stranded in Australia. I remember being on my couch. I'd been up from like 3 a.m. that day because I was working those hours to make the American meetings and run the staff and company over here. And little one was rolling around at that point. She wasn't really talking much. She's on the floor. And I was like, okay, it's now or never. We're creating this curriculum. We're creating this branding formula for schools and for students so they get all the information that we've been doing out on the street in the school system before they graduate. And the reason for it was two things. If you are a creative individual, especially if you're someone like Rick, traditional school system really isn't going to work for you.
Thank you so much, because I'm one of those individuals.
You would be, 100%.
I went to school and excelled in band and orchestra and some art classes and American history and failed miserably in everything else because it didn't capture my interest.
And it's not how you learn, right? It's just not how you learn. And more importantly, the school system isn't speaking to you. Right? It's trying to speak to everyone, which I can respect, but at the same time, it's not really helping. And it failed me too. I am not a singer. I am not a songwriter. I'm definitely more on the business side, but I did grow up a professional dancer. So I toured the world dancing, and I have a creative spirit and enough creative there to get me by. So I'm different again. But so we created this curriculum, and what it is it's the 7 formulas that we do in real life when we're brand building an artist, and we've turned it into a learning project. And we partnered with Kennesaw State University, which it's Joel Katz's music business and entertainment program out of Kennesaw State University. Danny Howes and Keith Perezzi had that up. And our Dead Horse 7, or the DH7 branding curriculum, is 25% of that curriculum.
Wow.
So what we do is, if we are given an artist tomorrow, what we do is the 7 formulas. So number 1 is the strategy. Number 2 is the logo. Number 3 is the photography. Number 4 is the website. Number 5 is the marketing plan and the social media plan. Number 6 is the publicity. And then number 7 is the distribution and licensing. And licensing meaning music, and licensing also meaning branding, like partnership branding and logo placement. So that's how we build, and that's how we work artists, and there are the services we do at Dead Horse. So with this curriculum, we were like, okay, we got together with the school and we created the idea that we would have, we have anywhere from sort of 40 to 55 students in these classes. They're big classes. And we pair them up in groups of 4. And they have to hypothetically build an artist through those 7 formulas. So at the end of the finale, where we bring in guest panelists, we've had amazing guest panelists like Tony Brown, we've had Michael Blanton, we've had Keith Thomas, we've had Kevin Williamson from Warner Music, we've got Jimmy Harnan on the next one with Annie Automia, new co-president of Triple Tigers. And so basically these kids, these groups are presenting an artist from strategy and beginning all the way through to licensing and distribution. And they're literally presenting them as if they were trying to pitch an artist their way, or if they were trying to pitch themselves, because a lot of them are creative. A lot of them are singer-songwriters. So it's been incredible to create this curriculum. And we had an understanding that there was 2 sides to it. One, This helps the creative individual understand that they're a business. It understands the assets and information that they need to get out of school and build themselves. It gives them this whole creative branding instrument and tool that you can apply in so many different areas. If you do this curriculum, it's going to help you get a job at Universal Music. It's going to help you get a job at some music entity, but then it also helps you build and brand you. So they're killing two birds with one stone in this curriculum.
They've had lots of success with their own school, like that Billboard top 10 schools.
Top 4
schools for a few
Billboard
years.
named it. It just got named again, the Joel Katz Music Business Entertainment Program, one of the top schools in the world, top 4.
This education program, though, is something that, to me personally, I think has been sadly lacking for a long time. Obviously, with Kennesaw kind of being the flagship of the educational system, are you seeing interest from other entities at this point to expand beyond?
Yeah, so there is interest. As I said, we do it one by one with consults. So we've always been doing it kind of one by one. But we've really put everything into Kennesaw right now, and it has kept us pretty busy. And we are looking at adding a couple more institutions.
Yeah, we've done some pop-up ones. I know when we were in Australia, Mel toured the regional towns of Australia doing the DH7 for the government program she was working on.
And then we had a masterclass for MTSU as well. Love those guys over there.
When you think about it, if they're getting taught music, it's like, okay, like we've actually had artists that haven't had any music released. We've got them on a front cover of a local magazine or whatever without zero music. So we listen with our eyes. So when we listen to that song, okay, how do we pair that song with a visual that's not disconnected?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the minute you see something, you hear a different thing. If people are in tune. So it's our job to get all those pieces together, and we listen to music because we do help in the production when we work with artists. But we want to make sure that they all marry up together so it's nice and tight, and there's no questions of issues later on, well, it's not working, or, of course, not everything's going to work, but you give it the best shot and the tightest fit you can.
Well, and I think it really transfers it from being something that's ambiguous or vague to a focal point that you can actually zero in on and see whether that's going to work or not. Am I right?
Yep, I would agree. I would agree to that. And then another interesting thing is, like, okay, so let's put two artists side by side, right? We've had signed artists with incredible vocal capabilities, good songs, like good songs, but not a strong brand. And branding cracks, right? There's branding cracks. And what I mean by that is you go onto the Instagram, you go onto the website, you go here and it's looking all right, but it's not consistent and there's not a strong message. You're literally relying on a pretty face and hopefully a great song and great voice, right? And that, again, is all within the eye of the beholder. Yeah. Is it a great song? Is it a great voice? Do you like that voice? I mean, I love Stevie Nicks and my dad's like, can't stand her voice. Wow, I don't even know how that's possible, but okay, that exists, So we've had an artist like that come through our gates, and all we're hired to do is press. Okay, so that's all we can do. Hands are tied, can't rebrand, can't do anything, just press. Cool, we'll do that. But then there are acts that are absolutely unknown, no label deal, independent, thankfully have the funding to put in behind themselves, and we have branded them from the ground up. Everything I said, 7 formulas. And they come to release at the same time. And you watch the press hit, you watch the social media, you watch the Spotify, you watch the engagement, you watch, the ROI on everything. And what artist wins? The well-branded one. She's got a great voice too. Songs, good as well. I mean, comparatively, but label, not a great brand, and that branding drives up. I mean, it's the difference of sometimes 20 to 30 media placements on some really good media outlets. Because what's happening is when that media gets your email or gets the press release, the first thing they're doing is clicking website. They're clicking social media. They're clicking all the sites. And if they're seeing a compelling story, if they're seeing a compelling brand and message, it's usually after then that they'll click to find the music. They're usually clicking to see first. Right? And then it's like, oh, let me take a look. And then when that music blows them away, they're like, man, where has this person been? And then it starts to take off. And it's not a comparison of a signed artist or an unsigned artist. It's just a comparison of branding and great messaging versus just expecting the machine to take you.
I look at it as almost you're either in a casual relationship or you're in an intimate relationship, because now you know so much more about this artist through the branding that you weren't getting fulfilled or satisfied with through the other.
You need to be able to latch on to something.
Yeah.
If it's just fluff, then what are we here for? You know, oh, it's a nice tune. See you later.
I remember back in the 70s that my favorite groups that I would follow, and we didn't have internet back in those days. It was all based on hard print. And if you saw the same picture, for example, you know, I'm one of those guys. Oh, I've seen that picture 16 times now. I want to see something new. I want something a little more intimate, in a close-up, personal. And I think the artists that took the time to do either multiple photo shoots or a lot of different settings, that's what kind of cued me in on, well, they care enough about me that they're going to take that extra step to create, you know, a bigger picture of them. And I think we're missing that a lot these days.
Yeah, and back to the point of, you know, where do you fit in the whole scheme of things? It's like you look back in the 70s, like Alice Cooper, for example, he's like, well, all them spots are taken. I'm gonna do my own thing. Now, he doesn't go and bite chicken heads off, and, you know, he's a very religious guy. So he created something. So in a way, it wasn't honest. It wasn't honest to him as an artist, but it was honest to what he was portraying.
Right.
So he found a niche and he went with it. He's still touring on it.
Still.
And that's what a career is about, and that's great branding.
And that's the thing, and that's what we say a lot too. It's a lot of artists think they have to be authentic and unique to themselves. And I'm like, well, no, you're a brand. You have to be authentic and unique to the brand, not to you, unless you want to be to you, right? You've got to separate yourself. So example, like I am a quite hippie, organic, little free-spirited bird that runs around, you know, barefoot all the time. And I'm always in linens and whites, and I'm all about that texture of cotton. But at work, I'm in all black. And you're going to always see me in black, and you're always going to see me edged up and not barefoot, right? But I'm still being authentic, but I'm authentic to the business and the brand and the culture we've created for Dead Horse. But so some artists, they can't compartmentalize like that. They're like, oh, but... And it's okay if they just, like, if I came out as an artist, then I would decide, do I want to be the Dead Horse artist, or do I want to be the Mel barefoot in the garden with the flowers artist? Like, which one? But some artists just think that there's a real issue with not being like, well, I have to be me on stage. Like the person that goes to sleep at night and the person that's, you know, behind the camera and just watching TV, I have to be that person on stage. It's like, no, you don't. No, if anything, it's the opposite. You need to be a stage brand and a brand that you would, like Lady Gaga didn't go to bed with a shit on her head, okay? She didn't go to bed with two models standing there, like, just staring at her like she did in the press when she came out. So that's where you've just got to think about. And it doesn't mean that you can't be an authentic artist to yourself. I mean, Chris Stapleton would be one of the most authentic artists to themselves. Like, there's no third person kind of third branding going, oh, what would Chris Stapleton do? And that's fine, but you've got to just allow yourself to think about it and open up.
You look at Chris Stapleton first time and you go, that's the real deal.
Exactly.
He's being who he is. Now, whether he's that way at home, you know, sitting on the couch, drinking a beer or whatever it is, but when you look at him perform, you go, I get it.
And the thing is with that, talking about brands, you know, during that period before Chris came out in the scenes, it's like, they had the baseball cap wearing, bro, country, whatever. And this guy comes out of the gates like he probably didn't have a chance a few years back. But he's that good and he's that authentic. You can't fault that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's branded himself in such a way that it sets Chris Stapleton apart from so many others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The DH7 program, is it solely at Kennesaw right now, or can they enroll in such a program, or do they have to do it through Kennesaw, or how's that working?
It's through Kennesaw right now as the primary institution, but we do take artists on or students on one by one if it's something additionally they're looking for. So they can come direct. But Kennesaw is the main university. Yeah.
Is it an online program?
Yes, so it's all done through Kennesaw. Yeah, they have the ability to be in person, or I think they can sign up for Zoom classes and things like that.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, even when we're lecturing our component, it's primarily done by Zoom because we're all over the world.
Yeah, we go down to Atlanta every now and then and drop in. But the good thing about this program too, not all the questions, but most of the questions, we ask them for the answer. You know, would you do this? What would happen if you did this or you did that? What would happen? Oh, well, I wouldn't listen to that, or I wouldn't buy it. It's like, why? I don't know why. It's like, well, that's where we come in. We say, well, this is why.
Tell you what, yeah.
You don't know why, but here's the reason why. I think, oh, okay. Because a lot of that psyche, it's in your head already. You just, like one of the samples we show is like a McDonald's building. And like, okay, cool. What if the McDonald's building looked like this? Would you stop in and get a Big Mac? And go, no. I said, well, it says McDonald's on there. It's green. It's not a brick thing, but it's an actual Starbucks building that we put the McDonald's on it. And they said, oh, well, I don't know what I'd be getting if I was to get a burger there. But
it says the same name.
It's the same name. You know, and
it's the same arches too. Like it's the same,
and it's like,
different
okay,
color.
Well, I said, well, how do you feel if you put out music that's not consistent with your visuals? So if they might, like we have a lot of millennials these days, it's like, oh, well, we want to change it up. No, stick to what you do for a long period of time. Like Mel says, Lady Gaga was Lady Gaga for a long time, and then she went and did her own thing. Billie Eilish, same thing. She'd come out of the gates, green hair.
We use Justin Bieber too as an example for logos. Sorry, Justin. But as famous as he is, he's got not one mark. If you Google Justin Bieber logo or Justin Bieber, there are so many different marks that represent him. Now, people will argue, but he's famous. It's the music. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And we're like, absolutely, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about branding as a whole. And we're talking about if your grandma is trying to go somewhere to buy you Justin Bieber merch, how does she know which one it is? How does she know she's not getting ripped off from a crazy site and nothing's going to be delivered? Or again, that branding is so important all the way around. Not just, oh, well, they're famous, it doesn't matter. It's like you're still missing out on revenue and you're missing pieces. And we're about filling those pieces in.
Yeah, so Justin Bieber's probably worth, I don't know, 300 million, whatever he's worth. And he could be worth $1 billion, for example, because he's not capitalizing on all the things slipping through the cracks. And a good example of that is one of our clients who is the Bo Diddley estate. We're forever sending out cease and desist for people selling Bo Diddley merchandise.
Wow.
So that money and revenue could be going to the estate through our channels, through the Bo Diddley channels. Instead, people selling stuff on Etsy, on Amazon, and it's like, no, we have to shut that down. So the best people that the Rolling Stones that I can mention, they're great. It's very simple. It's the tongue. They license that tongue. They don't have to buy 20 different versions of it. Well, you can, but it's still the same, right? So you know you're getting the legit thing, even if it's been ripped off. With someone like Justin Bieber, it's like, I don't know what I'm looking at. There's a million different marks out there, and it's like there's nothing really to attach to.
And even with the Bo Diddley estate, Rick just redid the marks and the identity and the branding, kept it like you've got similar intellectual property that makes you understand what it is, but he just redid all that. So now we're able to really differentiate and go, okay, unless it's got this mark, you're shutting down.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's things like that people don't think about. And it's business knowledge. Like if you go to the CEO of a medical company, they know this. They've got that logo everywhere. Like they know it. So why is it different for creatives?
And just for example, too, if you get all that nice and tight, like someone like Bo Diddley's been gone for a while, we're doing partnerships now with Bourbon Lines, Guitar. Gretsch Guitars is doing another line. We've got miniature guitars coming out. We're working on a bar and grill. So if there's nothing really to latch onto, like one certain mark, then what are they licensing? It's
nothing.
Just nothing.
Yeah.
It's multiple different things.
We're going to take another break, get another word in for our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to have some more conversation with Rick and Melissa.
You're listening to the business side of music.
It may have been Tammy Wynette who sang Stand By Your Man, but it was actually Nancy Jones who stood by the legendary George Jones for more than 30 years and helped bring him to the light. Now in her new book, Playin' Possum, readers get an intimate look at the country music legend through the eyes of his wife and partner. Nancy knew George Jones better than anyone. The good and the bad, the horrendous and the hilarious. Married in 1983, George quit his wild and wicked ways for a while, but Nancy learned all too soon that there were demons holding a strong grip on the man she loved. People who knew the possum credit Nancy's tenacious love, faith, and encouragement for saving George's life and rebuilding his career. For the first time in Playin' Possum, Nancy Jones reveals the true insider perspective and little-known stories about the country music legend, his battles with cocaine, alcohol, abusive behavior, battles with himself, and against the demons that sought to control and destroy him. Read the compelling first-hand account from the woman who refused to give up on George Jones. Playin' Possum is available now. Order your copy today from nancyjonesbooks.com, Amazon, and more.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives. Whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio here in Nashville, Tennessee, on the business side of music, Rick and Melissa Corcaballo. You two are always an inspiration for me when you come into the studio, and it's good to have you back in Nashville. I want to let you know.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Congratulations on all your awards lately too, by the way.
Thank you.
Can we have a shout out to the awards, please? Okay, so you've won 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rock Gods Hall of Fame.
So I was inducted into the Rock Gods Hall of Fame in July.
Yeah.
And then I just received Achievement of the Lifetime Award from the Nashville Music Awards.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Yeah.
Everyone say their thanks.
So you're too busy
respect.
tooting everyone else's horn. We want to toot yours.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And speaking of that, how can people find Dead Horse Branding, and what criteria do they need, and who are you two looking for?
We're looking for anyone that's got a story and a brand that they want to get out there, and anyone that is as passionate as we are about them. The worst thing is signing on a client to where your team and you are more passionate than they are about their career, right?
Because now you're doing all the work and they're doing nothing.
Well, and I take it as a compliment because I go, okay, I've got a team. I can sit back and they're going to take care of it. And it's like, okay, that's nice. I like that you have that much confidence. But the realisticness is, no, that's not how it works. We add fuel to the fire. You've got to keep it going. You're the business owner. We're the business team. So you've got to inject. But really, we're quite easy to track down. It's not hard.
Yeah, but we love working with legacy acts whose careers are sort of declining, and we boost them up, which we love that. And we also love building acts from the ground up. The middle part to me is not as fun because what you're doing is sustaining it.
Right.
You're just adding fuel to the fire, sustaining. But when you're building, it's like you're creative, you're working, and there's always their life depends on it, how to make it. And then the legacy acts on the back end, same sort of thing. It's like, how do we keep their name alive for all the great they've done?
Well, and a lot of legacy acts these days, they're older. That's why they're a legacy act. And they don't really understand that branding component because maybe for many years they had that artist development with the record label who took care of all that. Now all of a sudden they're a standalone independent artist or act.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like back in the day, like you go down Broadway now and everyone's got a bar. John Bon Jovi's opening a bar and, they're worthy of it, of course. And I'm not dissing Luke Combs, but these guys have been around for like, how long's Luke Combs been out? In the limelight.
He's a blink compared to so many
right,
others.
Exactly, and amazing artist. But what I'm starting to see is like they're watering down that iconic presence. You know what I mean? Like the Johnny Cash, them guys, Willie Nelson, like
Frank Sinatra. That
I'm not saying they haven't. The new guys haven't earned it, but when you reach at that point where you're licensing your name to bars like that, BB Kings, all that sort of thing.
Well, let's talk about the risk too. Like, let's not even. And again, this has nothing to do with Luke. He's an incredible artist, and so awesome that he's given such a incredible licensing opportunity so early. But branding and brand building is about time. I mean, when you do decide to make a big investment on a new artist that's only been out in the limelight so long, I mean, there's a lot of risk there. There's a lot of brand risk. There's a lot of like, can this artist sustain it? Can the career sustain? What are they going to mess up any deals? Like what? There's a reason artists are iconic. It's time. It's proven. It's the loyalty that's been built. It's the fact that they can stand the test of time, right? There's something with that. It doesn't mean you can't be successful in a shorter period, of course, or have great things, but they're just things to think about. And look, at the end of the day, I'm sure they've weighed this all up, but as Rick said, it can also give a lot of people false hope. Like all these new artists that pop out of the gates. Now they're like, well, I'm going to have a bar and restaurant in 3 years. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe, hey, we always shoot for the universe. Like we never go below it, but we also have realistic expectations.
And it's great that they're actually licensing. That's what we're talking about. Yes, go out there and license, but
is the sustainability there?
Yeah. What's that look like? Is that sign coming down in 4 or 5 years?
Right.
Whereas
and no one can answer that.
It's
all guesstimating. And again, awesome. Like so cool that it can be done so quickly and people have taken that time to invest and trust quickly. But
and just to dive a little bit deeper there is like someone like Jimmy Buffett, who, rest in peace, created an amazing brand. And a lot of help from his parrot heads. Mm-hmm. He has got something that's going to be around longer than he has. Well, he's passed on recently. So he's created a lifestyle. It was something done over a long period of time. That's a culture now.
He built the brand.
He built it. The brand. So, and again, I'm only bringing Luke Combs up because he's successful now in this area in licensing. So it's like, okay, what's his culture? What is that? I know what Jimmy's is, Jimmy Buffett's, but what's his? I'd like to know a bit more about it.
What sets him apart from everybody else?
Well, and the beauty is, and this is where you know if you've made it as a big branding star, right? And branding in any world, Kardashians, Hollywood, like wherever, branding. But if something did happen to you tomorrow, are those fans going to keep your name around? What are they going to do to keep your brand going? How invested are they? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, for Jimmy Buffett's fans, that's going to live on. Elvis's fans, it's going to live on. Marilyn Monroe, it lives on. Frank Sinatra, I mean, you can't, the evidence is there. The fans, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong on this, but I believe we were talking to someone the other day that basically saying, like, the parrot heads helped create Jimmy Buffett. Like, the fans helped create
the most of it.
His voice brand career per se, right? So you have to get fans invested over a certain amount of time for a long amount of time to be that into you forever, especially after you go.
The Grateful Dead, same thing. The Deadheads who followed that band everywhere. Exactly. Even though the band no longer exists, there's new entities that have sprung up.
That's right.
But the Deadheads are still loyal and they still attend those.
You see that T-shirt logo on all these people, and you go ask them a song and they probably couldn't even mention one song.
Right.
So they've done an amazing job in branding.
How can people find Dead Horse Branding?
Easiest way is our website, www.deadhorsebranding.com. There's a contact page, and then also our Instagram at Dead Horse Branding.
Excellent.
Very easy.
Rick and Melissa, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Bob.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.
Play something we can dance to.